Preseason football is underway, including the Seahawks opener this week against Pete Carroll, Geno Smith, and the Raiders. That not only means real football is back, but the fantasy draft season has arrived. The Ringer's Danny Kelly is here to dive into all of it. Let's light him up. I'm Jacson Bevins, and this is Cigar Thoughts. Welcome back to the Cigar Lounge. I am Jacson Bevins, and along with my somnambulant producer, Mike Barwin, this is the Cigar Thoughts podcast. And today I get to talk to one of my favorite people, both in and out of the industry. But first, cigars and whiskey. Cigar Thoughts is proud to be partnered with Seattle Cigar Concierge and Balvenie Single Malt Scotch Whiskey. Seattle Cigar Concierge and I have teamed up to release 2 versions of high-quality Cigar Thoughts stogies, both of which you can purchase by following the link on the show page or by visiting cigarthoughtsnfl.com. Mike and I love doing the show, and there are 2 ways y'all listening and watching can help support it so that we can keep the episodes coming. One is by purchasing the cigars, and the other is by subscribing to our YouTube channel at Cigar Thoughts, where you can watch full episodes as well as the funny and insightful clips that Mike puts together. Give a thumbs up to the stuff you like, and let us know what you think in the comments. And of course, you can listen to us everywhere you get your podcasts. It is great to be back in the Cigar Lounge with y'all after a very fun week, and it's just in time for the first slate of NFL preseason games. The Seahawks start out against my newly adopted second team, the Raiders, and all you fellow degenerates are, like me, gearing up for your fantasy drafts. All of that makes today's guest the perfect person to have on. He breaks down the NFL draft for The Ringer, co-hosts the wildly popular Ringer Fantasy Football Show, and joined me on stage last Thursday for the Mina Kimes live show in Seattle. Most importantly, he is one of the best real-life people I know and a very good friend. He is Danny Kelly. Danny, what's happening?
Not much, man. How you doing?
Oh, good, man. How much fun was last week, honestly?
Oh, yeah. It was great. It was super fun. Great energy from the crowd. Really fun to see Mina and chat it up with her. Yeah, it was awesome. Did you have a good time?
Oh man, I had so much fun because I didn't really know what to expect. You've done half a dozen live shows before, and I could tell you were very comfortable, with that whole situation because the energy is so different. Yeah. Right. I mean, you've got the lights, you can feel the crowd, but they're kind of behind the haze of those lights at the front of the stage.
Right.
And, there's just, it's a totally different vibe. Honestly, I think my favorite part was just getting 90 minutes to hang out with you and Mina backstage in the green room.
Yep.
My wife Paulina was there. She's been looking forward to meeting Mina for a long time and vice versa. So it's cool to see them connect. But that was, I think, super helpful that we all just got to connect because you and I get to see each other fairly frequently. But, we've been texting every day with Mina for 15 years, but I only get to see her every few years and you maybe a couple of times a year. So that was probably my favorite part of it, to be honest with you.
Yeah, totally. I totally agree. It was super fun to just hang in the green room. They had an amazing spread. They had like all these sandwiches, cookies, different drinks. It was awesome. So
shout out Mina for the writer that she sent them.
I know ESPN knows how to do it. So yeah, that was super fun. Really glad that we got to do that. The show was awesome. The show was, I think, really entertaining. I still need to watch the Julian Love part because I didn't catch it because I was off stage at that point. But I'm excited to listen to that as well. Sounds like he's the best guy ever. This is what I heard from Skippy was watching the show, my wife, and she said that he genuinely seems like the best guy ever.
Oh, just a total ace, man. Mm-hmm. But we were kind of joking about that with the Notre Dame guys before the show.
Oh, right. They're all buttoned up.
Yeah, they are. It's
pros.
It's like if the military academies could really recruit. Yeah, it feels like how the Notre Dame guys come out, and yeah, he was all of it. You and I kind of decompressed after our hour on stage with Mina, and then Julian came out, and you and I hung out backstage for a bit. Then I went and caught the back half of it, went out, sat with Paulina and watched, and yeah, he really does seem like the real deal. So for those of you wondering, I've been getting a lot of questions about when you can see it. today is Tuesday when we're recording. It may be Wednesday or Thursday by the time you're listening to this, but today, Tuesday, is the day that it's going to air on Mina's YouTube channel. So be looking for that, and we'll send out the link for it as well. Danny, August, I imagine, is a little bit of a shift both in direction and speed for you every year, because not only are we getting ready for football season, but for you, it also means fantasy season. Obviously for me too, just less professionally.
Right.
Talk to me about what that shift is like, going from not only, covering the NFL at large to having to talk more about it fantasy on a pro level, but also personally getting ready for fantasy drafts.
Yeah, it's a ramp up period. It's like I always kind of compare it to that first 10 minutes when you start running or playing basketball or whatever, when you don't quite have your second wind and you don't feel it's just like you feel like you're dying a little bit.
Yeah.
That is what late July and early August feels like for me, because obviously I take some time off after the draft, and we only record one show a week for our podcast, the Ringer Fantasy Football podcast. We only do that once a week during the off season, so we kind of take it slow in the off season, get some time to rest up and recuperate. But then, man, we hit the ground running with the fantasy stuff. We're doing our fantasy draft guide, which is all of our rankings, which we're continually updating. We have to do blurbs for all those guys, so we write a bunch of blurbs. Trying to keep up with all the training camp news across the league, which is always just like drinking from a fire hose. There's constant stuff happening every single day. Trying to reach out to people and get kind of background information, inside information on stuff that's happening in the league, that kind of thing throughout August, while still trying to enjoy the summer a little bit, because the season hasn't actually started yet. So I'd say August is a little bit stressful, but it's obviously really good weather, and still trying to enjoy the summer a little bit.
Yeah. And, I think that one of the things that has really elevated the NFL over the last 10 to 15 years is the explosion in fantasy football. It's not just something that a small contingent of NFL fans do anymore. And you're seeing it, of course. I mean, your show is wildly popular. The thought of a fantasy football show, like a strictly fantasy football show, having the size of audience that you have, probably would have seemed crazy 10 years ago. But yeah, you still have to do it yourself too. You don't just talk about it. You're in a number of leagues. You and I are in a handful of leagues together, including our home league. Shout out Hush That Fuss. And we're getting ready for draft weekend here coming up in about a week and a half. What is it that you look for in a league now that you've played in so many? And I'm sure you have people asking you this all the time. What is it that draws you to a fantasy football league over another one?
I mean, usually it's just the people in it, obviously. You like to have some good friendly banter and trash talk, and, have people that are active in the league and paying attention, obviously. I'm in a lot of dynasty leagues where it's industry guys, and all these industry guys, me, are just kind of degenerates and playing 35 different leagues or whatever. So some of those leagues are a little bit quiet. And so I obviously am looking for, now if I'm joining a new league, it's more do I know the people in it? Are they, going to be super active? Is it a fun type of league? So that's the kind of stuff I'm looking for over, any particular sort of settings or whatever. It's just trying to connect with people. And this is it actually just gets back to the core reason that we do fantasy, and the reason I love fantasy is you just keep in touch with your friends. You know what I mean?
Yes.
This is male friendships in this era of the world are and women's friendships too, in a lot of senses, you stay connected through these fantasy leagues. I know my wife has fantasy leagues with her girlfriends, and that's a huge reason that they stay connected. And I think obviously you and me have been able to stay super close since high school because of these fantasy leagues that we play in. So it's just one of those ways that you can stay connected, talk to your friends all the time, get to see them a couple times a year if they live out of state or whatever. Right. So it just gets to the core of why I think people like fantasy and why fantasy is so fun. Is because it's just a good excuse to talk to your friends and hang out.
Yeah. And I think, one of a lot of this is just natural, right? Do you have guys or girls in the league that care enough to engage? And you and I are fortunate to be a part of I mean, I'm biased, of course, but I think one of the best fantasy football leagues in the world.
In the world.
With Hush That Fuss. And, I think a lot of it comes down to, for a lot of leagues, there's a lot of pressure on the commissioner to kind of keep things going and like make sure that, everybody's engaged and the rules are right and whatever. And one of the cool things about this league, which, we're going into our 18th year, is that everybody has kind of chipped in. And we've got people who take care of. And so, and the reason I'm mentioning this is for you commissioners out there who are looking to kind of juice up your league or reinvigorate it or take it to the next level. One of the best things that you can do is deputize people that are in the league.
Yeah.
And, we've got a treasurer. We've got, someone who takes care of the tech stuff on draft day, right? Just so that I, as the commissioner, am not needing to worry about it. We play in a keeper auction league where you essentially are trading contracts. The platform we play on ESPN is not really set up to handle that. So we've got someone, shout out Trout, who takes care of tracking all of the salaries. We've got a gun integrity committee. Danny, you have kind of nationalized what I think might be my favorite part of our league, which is if you start a player that scores 0 or negative points, you have 48 hours to video yourself shotgunning a beer and send it to the league, or else you're docked points the following week. And the coolest thing about that is, like, of course we're all paying attention to our games, but all 12 people are totally locked in. When you get to the second halves of games and someone starts at 0, I mean, the whole text thread is shotgun.
The gun watch.
Gun watch. And then, if someone does score, Hunter Henry's got 0 points in the fourth quarter and he catches an 8-yard pass. The whole league is pissed.
Yeah, totally. That's such a great rule. And like you said, I've kind of talked about it on my fantasy show a bunch of times, and I feel like it's catching on. People have come to me at our live shows and be like, we've instituted a new shotgun rule or whatever. Like, there's obviously different versions of it that you can do. But it's so funny. It's like, in us living in the Pacific Northwest, like, going out in the rain and the cold on like a Monday night and shotgunning a beer is not what like a lot of people want to do, but it's such a good way to, just like have fun with your league. And a lot of the guys in our league do like really creative, like incredibly creative, time-consuming ways to do the shotgun where they're like editing it on Photoshop afterwards and adding music. It's just like, like this is why we do fantasy again. It's so fun to me. It's not like, obviously some people play fantasy where they're trying to win money at the end of the year, which is, I totally understand that and respect that. But like for me, fantasy is more just like the fun that you get from interacting, and like you said, the gun watch on Sundays where everyone's like, it's like as soon as I see it's the emoji, the gun in the like the squirt gun in the watch, I'm like, damn, like don't put my name next to that, damn it. Yeah, it's just so funny. It's such a good way to kind of like stay engaged during Sundays. So yeah, it's a great rule. If you're listening now, you should implement some version of that in your league, because it keeps people like engaged and paying attention, and you have something to root for. Obviously, if you're trying not to get a 0.
Totally. And it's so funny. I love your shotgun videos because they're just so yeoman. I mean, you just friggin' stiff upper lip, go out there, crush the beer. I mean, I hardly drink beer anyway, but I hadn't shotgunned a beer in 20 years or whatever since we started doing it. It's harder than it looks.
Dude, it's freaking cold.
We just shout out some of the guys like John Falcon is incredible with his shotgun videos. Trout's amazing. Tim Montgomery does a fantastic job. James Monreen, that guy can shotgun a beer in like 3 seconds. I don't know how it's possible. It's cool to see everyone put their stamp on it. The one other thing, and I want to get your thoughts on this too, that I would just encourage fantasy leagues out there, especially if you're kind of struggling with engagement. Nothing is worse than, being down 30 points after the Thursday night game, and it's easy to kind of like check out. So I really, really recommend implementing median scoring. And this is for those unaware. Most sites have it now. We started this probably 12-ish years ago, before it was really a setting. It was kind of a manual adjustment, but most platforms will do it now, where not only are you playing your head-to-head game, but if you finish in the top half of the league in scoring that week, you get an additional win.
Yeah.
Bottom half, you get a loss. And what this does is it keeps probably at least 10 of the teams every week locked in through Monday night, because even if your score is already decided, you may be one of the 6 or 7 teams that's bouncing around the league median, and watching that is stressful. A great way to keep everyone engaged.
I'm telling you, this is the other thing that like Monday nights get so stressful, because you're just like sweating every little stat, every player that's still going. And it's devastating, obviously, when you get 0-2 week. And it's also like nice because the standings really swing quite a bit in these types of leagues. Like you can make over a 2 or 3 week period, you can jump from like 7th to 2nd or whatever.
Yes.
Because you have these big swings, the 2-point swings or whatever. So I highly recommend that. We're doing that in most of my leagues now.
Good.
Like you said, a lot of the services now provide that just automatically, which is great. Because I used to, like you said, have to kind of add it up on Sunday nights or Monday nights or whatever, and kind of manually adjust the records. Now you can just make that a setting. It's like I think it's like called the league median rule. We call it, what do we call it? I forgot.
Just median scoring.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So if you finish in the top 6, you get another win, which is it again. It's also like the better teams, generally speaking. It just helps you separate. If you get unlucky one week, you're still going to get at least one win because you're scoring a lot of points. It kind of like the better teams are going to look better in the long term.
Yeah, it's always so frustrating if you score 130 points and your partner, your opponent goes off for 150,
right?
And now you're 0-1. And you see some other slapnuts score 92, but they drew an 87 as an opponent, and they get a win. You're like,
someone
give me a break,
didn't start a quarterback. Yeah.
In that situation, you each at least get to go 1-1. And to your point, I do think that it creates a little bit more of a meritocratic final standings.
Mm-hmm.
It's a little bit less luck focused, but the biggest thing is it just increases engagement. So I definitely recommend that to anyone that's not using it already. And then, just, there's so much focus on a last place punishment for, the end of the year. I really recommend having some sort of variation of the shotgun rule, or if you start someone that scores 0 or negative points, there's like a little weekly quote unquote punishment for it.
You have to make some sort of video and send it to the group. It's just really funny. It's a fun way to, and obviously with everyone having phones now, it's so easy to do. So yeah, I think it's a great rule. I think it's really catching on, honestly. So implement that in your league if you're looking for more, if you're more interaction and everything.
We remain pioneers, Danny.
I mean, look, I take solace in the fact that I'm helping spread the gospel of the shotgun rule, because I freaking suck in this league. I've been in the league, I don't know how long now, like 10 or 15 years, and I've never won. I'm fucking mid every single year. Mid is like being generous. For some reason, you guys, that's a really sharp league. I just like have been really bad at it. So hopefully gonna win this year. That'll be my goal. Hopefully I not finish last place, which I did a couple years ago. So it's a sharp league. It's a fun league, and obviously some great rules.
Yeah. Well, that's the other benefit, right? Like if you have a league with high engagement, it means high engagement when it comes to prep for the draft. It means high engagement on the waiver wire. And I really recommend using free agent auction budget as opposed to a waiver wire as well. And, as a result, there really aren't any edges left. And it is like, it's something that I think is so funny, because I'm in, 6 leagues with you, Danny. I know you're in about 30. And you're like, it's like 50-50 in all the other leagues, whether or not Danny's going to win. Like, he's not just doing his show because, he's good at writing and talking and knows ball. Like, he's an excellent fantasy football player, but he cannot crack Hush That Fuss. And it is just to the delight of all of us amateurs in the league.
It's so brutal. It's honestly so brutal. It's like the one league I actually really want to be good at. And I'm like, I can't. It's also, I will say this is another, if you're talking just like setting up fantasy leagues, auction draft, it's not something that I do more. I do way, way, way more of just snake drafts, like the generic kind of, I'm get really good at sort of memorizing the ADP, where to expect guys to go. Auction drafts are much more, it's you're feeling it out as the draft goes along. It's much more, I don't know what the word is. Like, it's just like way higher.
It's very
variant.
dynamic.
Yeah, dynamic is the right word. Like auction drafts, you have to be really clued in the whole time. And you have to come in with a specific plan, which is something that I've kind of learned over the years. Because to be honest, I just am terrible. I have been terrible at auction drafts until the last couple of seasons, where I'm sort of starting to like dig into like the strategies around it more. So it's a really fun way to do it if you want to try and change up your league. It takes a little bit longer, but it's really fun because you can go in with a specific plan of like who you want your team to be, and you can get a good chunk of that team. Like, whereas in snake drafts, it's kind of like, you know, you might want a couple guys, but they're going to get taken at some point.
Well, and if you've got the ninth pick, there's just half a dozen guys you can't have.
You can't get Gibbs. You can't get whoever. You can't get Jamar. So yeah, I mean, I think there's just your guys' league, the Hush That Fuss League, which is again really fun. Is it's like a lot of different style stuff than what I usually play. So I'm kind of learning as I go. I'm trying to get better at it, but yeah, you guys are pretty sharp.
Well, yeah, we love having you in the league. It's a jewel in our crown that you're not only a part of it, but such an active member, and
that I suck at it. Yeah.
Well, you know,
that's a bonus. Yeah.
It's tough league. It's tough league.
Yeah.
It's so tough. I've only won it 5 times. So I you know, and for those that are, you know, maybe like, oh, the biggest knock I hear against auction drafts is one, it's just uncomfortable, right? Mm-hmm. Like you kind of have an idea that you can wait X amount to get this player or that player. You have no idea what order players are going to get nominated in, how much money they're going to go for. But the other knock is that, it takes longer. And I'm like, is the draft not the best part of the fantasy season? Like, are we in a hurry? It's like golfing when people are in a hurry. It's like, are you in a hurry to get off the course?
Right.
Like,
right.
This is the best part of it. So I definitely recommend that. And great to get your perspective on it, Danny, because I know that you're in so many leagues at such a high level too. This is still a football show. I'm so glad, I would talk fantasy a whole lot more if I could, but I spend all my free time doing that. I do want to get your thoughts on, because not only are you a Seahawks fan and you kind of made your hay in this industry writing about the Seahawks for field goals, but you don't get a chance to talk about them a whole lot on your show. And I know that you've got strong thoughts because I text with you pretty much every day about the Seahawks. Talk to me about your outlook this season. What are you most excited about with the 2025 Seahawks, and what are you most worried about?
I am most worried about the offense just in general because, I think the reason I was kind of upset this offseason with the Seahawks was, I think, generally speaking, if we're not even talking about the Seahawks, we're just talking about, the philosophy of building a team, right? Like, I think the best teams in the NFL a lot of the time are designing a scheme and coaching around the best players. Like, you know what I mean? Like, you have these really good players and you put together a scheme that accentuates their strengths. You try not to you try not to ask players to do something that they're not good at, right? Like, that's like a sign, that's a hallmark of good coaching. And something Pete Carroll talked about forever is like, you don't ask your players to do something they can't do. So like big picture, I always think the best coaches are the ones, like Ben Johnson's a perfect example of this. He's like really good at designing schemes and designing plays that are going to get the most out of his players, right? And I think I've always kind of looked at that as like a really good sign of a great coach. And the Seahawks kind of did the opposite of that this offseason, where they decided to put their chips in on Clint Kubiak and a different scheme, and they traded away 2 of their best players in Geno Smith and DK Metcalf. And so if I'm trying to be unbiased, even though like I'm obviously, kind of buying into this new offense and I'm excited about it, and I think, you can talk yourself into anything at the end of the day. When this all happened,
especially this time of year.
Yeah. When it happened, I was just like, man, this just doesn't seem like good process. Because, like, again, you're trading away good players in exchange for a coach that is largely unproven in bringing what he does. Obviously, I think philosophically they weren't what they wanted to be. So, I can see the defense of Mike Macdonald and John Schneider for doing this. Like, they just were not the type of offense that they want to be. Therefore, we're going to like kind of like hit the reset button. And I can understand that on some level. But at the end of the day, I was like, I don't know, man. It just seems like a lot. It seems like a big leap to trade away two of your best players on offense and instead put all your chips in on a unproven coach in Clint Kubiak, who, he was like good early on in the season last year, but things kind of fell apart when they had some injuries. And I don't know if there's like, we have a really strong grasp on like what he is or who he is. And so I felt like that overall was like an ass backwards way to do it process wise. Hopefully the results are really good and it won't matter. But generally speaking, that was kind of my reaction to this offseason is like, you're trading away your good players for an unproven scheme. So we'll see how this kind of all goes.
Sure. And look, the offense wasn't what any of us were hoping it was going to be when they hired Ryan Grubb. And it felt like there was a lot of positional strength overlap between the Seahawks going into 2024 and the Huskies coming out of 2023. The difference was the Huskies had the best offensive line in college football.
Sure.
And the Seahawks didn't have the best offensive line in the NFL.
Yeah.
And there just wasn't a counterpunch. And it was like so much of their success really was predicated on the offense, Michael Penix having time to throw and Roma Dunze having time to get downfield and having an effective running game. And the last two offense coordinators for the Seahawks didn't really have a counterpunch. Because that's the thing in the NFL. No matter how whiz bang you are when you come in and you've got a scheme that defenses aren't ready for, the NFL is the fastest learning organism on planet Earth, and they're going to figure you out.
Yep.
And the good ones, you mentioned Ben Johnson, his ability to put players in positions to succeed. Sean McVay is about as good as I've ever seen at figuring out like, okay, if this isn't working, what can we do to combat that?
Right.
And they've always got a secondary pitch, a tertiary pitch. And Seattle hasn't had that for a long time, to be completely honest. And one thing that, if I had to make an optimistic case for Clint Kubiak, is I think that his baseline offense, which is really, it's like 12 personnel and it's this zone running scheme with a lot of movement on the offensive line. Like, it requires a lot of athleticism from the offensive line, which Seattle has had. They have an athletic offensive line. Where they've struggled is, can they hold a block for 2.5 seconds?
Right.
In this scheme, you don't really need that. You need to find an angle, hit your angle, and that's what creates the time and the space. But the other cool thing about it is it sets up so much better for counterpunches, for play action, for bootlegs, for more of a horizontal moving offense when you need it than either Shane Waldron or Ryan Grubb had, where it was like, well, if you're sitting on my fastball, I don't really trust me to beat you with the slider type of thing.
Right.
And I do think that sets up well. I think this would have been a perfect situation for Gino and DK personally, because it really is about tight window throws, short and over the middle of the field, and then being able to go deep. Like, that was the thing. You mentioned how good Clint Kubiak's Saints offense was the first couple of weeks. They scored like 85 points in the first 2 weeks of last year. And so much of it was just going over the top because they were so effective with the run game and the short passing game that it took away that too high safety shell that has been flummoxing some of the best offenses in the NFL for the last 3 years. So that's the bull case. Listeners of the show know I share your opinion. I share your skepticism with some of the offseason moves on the offense. But I do think there are a lot of reasons to be excited about this team, and most of them are on the defensive side.
Yeah.
I thought that Mike Macdonald really showed that he has what it takes as an NFL head coach. You're never sure with coordinators. It's just because you can call a good offense or a good defense does not mean that you're ready to run a $5 billion organization or be the face of a $5 billion organization. It's like when you need to replace the CEO, just because someone was a great salesman or the best HR person that you could find, you go headhunting. The CEO role is so much different, so much more dynamic.
Yeah, you have to have a different skill set. It's
100%.
Totally different.
And he did seem wired for it. Like, if you're going to move on from the most successful major sports coach in Seattle history, then you got to hit on that guy. And I think they did.
Yeah.
And it speaks to, I think, the shared disappointment you and I had with the Geno Smith and DK Metcalf trades. Not to belabor that point, was this is a team that lost the division on the 5th tiebreaker last year. It's not like, oh, hey, it didn't work out. Went 7-10.
Right.
Let's tear it down. It's like they were kind of right there. So I'm all for resetting. I'm a little skeptical about how they're doing it on the offensive side, but on the defensive side, we are seeing a ton of continuity between last year's team that over the last half of the season was a top 8 defense by pretty much every metric. I expect them to be at least that this year. Am I being overly bullish in thinking this is an upper quartile defense in 2025?
I mean, no. I think that based on everything that I've been hearing just across the league, listening to a lot of national podcasts and places that are ranking defenses, like I've seen people putting the Seahawks in the top 3, top 5. So upper quartile.
Yeah,
I think you're being conservative more or less. I think I heard Jordan Rodriguez said top 10 is sort of like the floor. And, she's really dialed into the league. Greg Rosenthal on that same pod was he wouldn't be surprised if the Seahawks had the number 1 rated DVOA team in the NFL this year. Kind of like one of his hot take, but educated guesses on kind of like the direction. And we've seen Mike Macdonald's defenses take big leap in the second year of the program in the past.
Yes.
If you just look at the talent on the defense, it's pretty damn impressive, especially the front line or whatever. There's they have so much depth, so much talent. And I just love the way that they are able to utilize some of their guys in this scheme. It's kind of like it does feel like, even though, these guys are not all sort of like new to the program, they all kind of fit perfectly with what Mike Macdonald wants to do. So I'm really excited about, I think the run defense is going to be really solid. I'll tell you, like, even though, the NFL has turned into like a high flying, high scoring, I'm a fantasy guy. I love to see touchdowns. I love to see passing. There are a few things it's like almost like a primal thing. There are a few things in life more satisfying than a good run defense. Just being able to stop the run, not being able to stop the run is the most demoralizing thing I think that you can have as a defense. Like,
oh my God. I mean, think about the last couple of years. Pete Carroll wasn't sleeping those last 2 years because in 2022, 2023, Seahawks had a lot going right for them, and they couldn't fucking stop the run.
Yeah.
And you use the right word. It is demoralizing when your defense can't get off the field. I mean, Seattle played the most defensive snaps in both 2022 and 2023 for that exact reason.
Can't get off the field, can't create turnovers, can't swing the game late. There's just so many detrimental things and variables that happen when you can't stop the run consistently. And so, I just think back to the Legion of Boom era. Like, obviously they were really good at defending the pass, but one of their hallmarks was they just make a team one-dimensional because you can't run on them.
Yep.
And being one-dimensional, it's a really hard place to live in the NFL. And so obviously I'm excited about the Seahawks. Hopefully improved run defense, I should say. And then obviously, hopefully that can lead to a explosion in turnovers as teams look to force the ball down the field as passing teams. I think the Seahawks have a really good secondary. There's some incredible talent there that I think still has potential to get even better, like Reek Woolen. And Devin Witherspoon, I think, he's an outside chance to be a defensive player of the year type of talent. Leonard Williams is awesome. Byron Murphy in his second year could take a big jump. He was a little bit quiet, I think, as a rookie, but it's not like he wasn't playing well. He just obviously was kind of lost in the shuffle of a bunch of other guys. And there's just a lot of talented players, Boye Mafe, Derek Hall, that I think could make jumps this year. So especially in a system like Mike Macdonald's where they're going to get opportunities to do so. You look at some of the Ravens guys that came off of Mike Macdonald's defense, kind of quiet careers up to the point where Mike Macdonald took over, and now they're all of a sudden like getting tons of stats, making tons of plays because he puts them in good positions to do that. So, the defense, I honestly, like, I'm trying to stay rational and trying to stay even keeled about the defense, but I'm starting to kind of like buy into some of the narratives right now where the Seahawks could have like a top 3 defense. Like that would be incredible. And you get a even league average offense, and this could be, a 12-win team. So, yeah, I'm trying not to get too over my skis on the defense, but yeah, it's really, really exciting.
Yeah, you mentioned Greg Rosenthal as kind of one of his like warmer takes was that this could be the number 1 defense by DVOA. I mean, that tracks with Mike Macdonald's track record where,
right.
Again, he takes over a bad defense. They struggle in the first half as they learn the new language, new responsibilities, new keys. And then second half, they look really good of year 1. And then year 2, they take off. We saw it at Michigan. We saw it at Baltimore. It is trending that way in Seattle. We had Greg on earlier this offseason, and we kind of talked about this. And then last week, we had our mutual friend Ben Solak from ESPN on, and his take was, this is a top 10 defense, but they don't have the stars to be top 3. Like, they just don't have the horses in the stable. And it was an interesting discussion because I think Seattle has a bunch of above average players on their defense. Bunch of like kind of top 100 guys in Julian Love, and you mentioned Reek Woolen and Devin Witherspoon, who I agree, both of those guys have star potential. You've got a bunch of really good players, Ernest Jones, Leonard Williams,
right,
Boye Mafe, Derek Hall, Chenna Nwosu, like guys that can really contribute. We all expect Byron Murphy to take a big step this year. They're all there, but there isn't right now a Micah Parsons or a Kyle Hamilton or a Pat Surtain or a Myles Garrett type of player on this team. Although you can make a case that Leonard Williams was borderline first team All-Pro worthy last year.
Yeah.
Can a scheme be good enough to take a bunch of above average talent and perform at the same level as a defense that has 2 or 3 absolute stars on it?
I mean, I think so. And I think that's kind of the point I was trying to make with like McDonald's defenses in Baltimore. And I'm trying to like remember the specifics, but like his 2023 defense, I don't like remember if there was any superstar players. Kyle Hamilton has turned into that. But
like Justin Madubuike was like just a name that you only knew if you were like an absolute freaking roster honk. Right. And then you go, what do you have? Like 13 sacks. We had the Jadeveon Clowney resurgence.
Roquan
Smith obviously changes a lot.
Yeah. And Patrick, he turned those guys into, I think, household names. But to that point, I guess my point is like he got a lot of people paid. Is like the best way to put it. It's not that I don't think people were looking at that defense before that season and were like, this is the most star-studded, stacked defense of all time. It was more like there's a lot of good players on this defense. You could see a star or two. I think it's kind of the same discussion we're having now. And Kyle Hamilton turned into an All-Pro. Maybe that's Devin Witherspoon next, hopefully. Or Nick Emanwari comes in and like does some exciting things for them. But I think like generally speaking, that's kind of what I was saying is like Mike Macdonald got a lot of people paid from that defense, and I don't think it was because they were superstar studded. It was just a bunch of really good players that kind of were doing their job and responding when they had the opportunity to be like the guy rushing the passer or whatever. Because of the uncertainty, he said his term is, what is it? It's complexity, the illusion of complexity, which I love just because it's not a complex defense. They're not blitzing a lot. They're rushing 4 guys, but you just never know.
You don't know which 4.
You never know which 4 are playing and or coming. And that's not like that's not a new concept. That's been around forever. But Mike Macdonald just has a good sense of how to do it. It's kind of like the Sean McVay thing. It's like Sean McVay didn't invent any new plays. He just knows how to sequence them, how to disguise them, how to utilize personnel, and kind of like get the most out of the personnel. Like his thing for forever has been like, we are running 12 personnel, but we're running it with like receivers, right? Because our receivers will block. So there's just this advantage that we have because we have the personnel to do this specific thing. And so, I think I'll be honest, like I don't really know how he's so good at it, but he just is. Like he has an ability to teach the defense really well. this is something that you hear constantly, is like he simplifies it to the point where anybody can understand what they're doing and what the other players on the defense are doing, so you can understand kind of like the whole of the system. So I think that's just like a good sign of coaching, and like a hallmark of good coaching, again, is just like they have a good ability to sequence and kind of know what play to call, what defense to call in any given situation. And so I think Mike Macdonald has that it factor. And so, yeah, I think big picture, even though they don't have the superstar power, which I totally agree with, you don't have like a true superstar on this squad. I think Devin Witherspoon could be that guy, stylistically, just because he plays like such a maniac. He could be the type of guy that becomes a household name for national point of view. But
he reminds me of Tyrann Mathieu a lot. And
yeah, totally.
And, where it's just like, there's no way a player this small should be playing this big. And to your point about like sequencing and simplifying, to me, Mike Macdonald is the defensive version of Kyle Shanahan, where, we had Bomani Jones on the show some months ago, and we talked about the difference, with Shanahan's offense. It's the difference between baking and cooking. And he is a baker. It is very exact, but if you can do those exact things, like you don't get to freelance a whole lot, but it looks like it out there when you see the Niners leading the NFL in yards after contact or yards after the catch, and these guys getting wide open. It looks very freelance, but it's not. It's a highly orchestrated ballet, and that's what you see with Macdonald's defense when it's playing its best. Is it looks like everybody is doing everything, but really what he's doing is simplifying it into a very binary decision-making process for his defenders, where they're looking for one thing. And if it's a 1, they do X. If it's a 0, they do Y. And if you get all 11 guys doing that, I mean, it really is a symphony, and it's so cool to watch. And I think that we are going to see, don't hear what I'm not saying. I'm not saying we're going to see the best Seahawks defense that we've seen really in our lifetimes, but I do think we'll see the most dynamic one, because that LOB era defense that led the league in points allowed for 4 straight seasons, that was not a particularly dynamic defense.
No.
That was we have a scheme that the league isn't ready for. We have put Hall of Fame talent all over this defense. And you know what we're going to do? We dare you to stop us. And, as contracts and injuries took their toll on that defense, they didn't really ever get to a point where it's like, well, okay, we've got a curveball coming for you. And what I think Mike Macdonald does that's so exciting is the football equivalent of what you see now in baseball with pitching coaching, that is about tunneling your pitches. Right. Essentially, make
those are the
every
coolest
single
little like breakdowns too, when you see the pitchers doing different pitches, but it like looks exactly the same up until the point the ball leaves the hand.
Yeah, well, and even the first 40 feet of that 60-foot pitch, the ball is in the same tunnel, and that's the whole idea. So by the time the batter is making up his mind on when to swing, whether to swing, how to swing, every pitch looks the same. And I really think that that's what Mike Macdonald is after on defense, is make everything look like a fastball up until the quarterback has to make a decision or the ball carrier has to make a decision. And then you find out, oh, it's a slider, it's a changeup. And even if you can get your defense to do that, you still have to be able to sequence it. That's what the great pitchers do, is they know how to set up batters. And Mike Macdonald has earned accolades from Shanahan and McVay and some of the best play callers out there as really keeping them guessing. So that's the thing that I am most excited to see. My question for you, Danny, is when you look at this NFC West, where do you slot the Seahawks in 2025?
Yeah, that's like the really hard part, because it's a really competitive division again. It feels like it's always been a competitive division going back to like the early 2010s. So it's, I think the Rams are probably on paper the favorite. I think the 49ers, even though they were bad last year, are good. They are a good team. They're well coached. They've got a lot of talent. They did a lot of work on the defense to kind of fix things. And I just trust Shanahan to, Shanahan has a thing where every one of his quarterbacks forever will average over 8 yards per attempt. Like that's
it's
just
insane.
Like it doesn't honestly
insane.
matter who's back there. They're going to average 8 yards per attempt and be pretty efficient and have open guys. So I do still worry that the 49ers are good. And then I think I'm not quite ready to buy the Cardinals hype. There's a lot of Cardinals hype right now. The defense is ascending. Obviously, Kyler Murray for another year in this system, fully healthy. There's a lot of talk of him running more this season, which is really exciting from a fantasy point of view, but also makes them more dynamic on offense. But I'm just not quite there yet. I don't know why. I just don't quite buy it. So I'd say the Seahawks they're certainly in contention to win the division, but I'd say probably I'd put them, in that second tier behind the Rams along with the 49ers, and then I put the Cardinals behind them. Just going in, but I think the Seahawks could win 10 plus games.
Yeah, I think there's 3 teams that there's 4 teams that could win 10 plus games. There's always a surprise 10 plus game winner. And to your point about the Cardinals, they could win the NFC South. They could win the AFC South. Like they're a good team, but I think there are 3 better teams. I agree with you. I think the Rams are borderline the prohibitive favorite if Stafford is healthy in that division. I mean, they came as close as anyone to beating Philadelphia last year, and looked like it wasn't fluky. Like they looked like they could.
They're like a punch you in the mouth.
Trade punches with the 800-pound gorilla, and McVay is the ultimate equalizer in that regard. I think them adding Devontae Smith, I think at this point of their careers is so much better than Cooper Kupp.
Devontae Adams.
That's going to be they're going to be really, really, really difficult. I would consider them a Super Bowl contender. 49ers a little bit tougher, I think, to judge just because everything went wrong last year. And we kind of had a feeling that was going to happen at some point. When you go to the NFC Championship game 4 times in 5 years, basically 4 straight years with a healthy starting quarterback, there's so much wear and tear. There's so much disappointment to overcome. There's so many salary implications of having that many good players on your team. We all saw it come crumbling down last year, but it didn't feel like the structure of the 49ers collapsed. They just had a lot of injuries. I expect them to be much better. If there is a way for 3 teams to win double-digit games in a division, the NFC West, I think, is the number 1 contender to do that.
I think, and this is probably true for any team, obviously, that injuries matter. But to me, the Rams are especially a house of cards when it comes to, like, if you pull one guy out, things could fall apart.
That's right.
Stafford's dealing with this back injury right now. It's kind of just like a perfect example of what could happen if Puka Nacua, who is certainly just gets the living shit beat out of him in every single game.
He plays receiver the way George Kittle plays tight end.
He peels himself off the turf.
I freaking love that guy.
In every game, at least once. Like from a fantasy point of view, it's like so hard watching him play because it's just like, get up. Don't be hurt. Obviously, he's tough as nails, but he just plays so hard that it worries you a little bit. Devontae Adams, obviously, he's like 30 plus at this point. To me, they're just a bit of a house of cards. And if one of these guys falls out, the whole thing could come crumbling. That being said, I think they are the favorite, like you said. But I do feel like people are kind of overlooking the Seahawks a little bit. I think their defense could be top 10, probably will be top 10. And then I think their offense is not, I don't think their offense is going to be bad, put it that way.
Well, the defense is going to make it a lot easier on their offense. I don't think there's going to be many games where they're forced to be one-dimensional. It's like, okay, Sam Darnold, go win this game, because the defense is going to keep them so competitive.
Yeah, and they still have a good amount of talent on this team. Jacson, Kenneth Walker, I'm like unreasonably high on every year probably, but I think he's one of the best pure runners in the NFL.
I agree.
And hopefully these offensive line additions kind of gel and go together. Like Gray Zabel, only heard good things about him so far.
Having a great camp.
You're kind of getting allowing yourself to get a little excited about some of these rookies. Elijah Arroyo is apparently having a great camp. Tory Horton is having a great camp. Dude, I will say this. When the Seahawks drafted Tory Horton, I got more messages from Colorado State fans than I would have ever expected. Everybody fucking loves this guy. Like, he is the all-time greatest player. And they've had some good, obviously they've had some good players in the past going to the NFL. But I mean, I just got so many messages from people that are really like follow that team really closely, and they all just absolutely love him. Think is one of the biggest steals of the draft, and you love to see that, obviously. And then he comes in, and Mike Macdonald was talking about this the other day. He's like making at least one big play at camp, or every day at camp. And starting to really make a name for himself. This in an offense where you're doing a lot of run game and then utilizing the play action passing game off of that. He's a really good downfield receiver. He could come in and be an upgrade over MVS. Like, that's not saying a whole lot, but like he could come in and be a big upgrade right away if he works his way into this offense. And obviously Cooper Kupp is a massive who knows with that. But I think Tory Horton, low key, could be kind of like a big addition to this offense, just based on it's like Rashid Shaheed in the Saints offense. Not that they're the same player, but like big plays, come up big in the right moments, and obviously be a big part of the play action passing game. I think Tory Horton could have that effect.
Well, and you have to be scared of that downfield guy in order for the Clint Kubiak offense to work, because it really is about winning in that 5 to 15 yard range and then setting up the deep play, which is what they were so effective at the beginning of last season. And you and I and Mina had been texting, and my prediction was that Tory Horton was going to take MVS's job by Thanksgiving. He might do it by Labor Day.
Yeah.
The way that he's going, he was saying just a couple thoughts on Tory Horton, because we really haven't talked about him a ton on this show. The other day, he's coming off of an injury. That's why he slipped in the draft.
Yeah.
And he ran a 4.41 at his pro day. And he was saying, I was only 70% when I did that, but I'm getting closer to 100 now. And then you look at the actual game tape, and me. I mean, I am as big of a Travis Hunter fan as you will find. I think he's the best college football player I've seen since, at least in Ndamukong Suh, maybe since Reggie Bush. And he had Travis Hunter in a blender. And Hunter was shadowing him too. Mm-hmm. I truly believe Hunter is the best defensive back coming out of college football last year. Tory Horton had his number. Yeah. He had like 10 for 120 in a score against him. And like, he's not just a speed guy. Like he's got the chops. I think Elijah Arroyo, another, they got the injury discount on that. Mm-hmm. If he had tested, I think he's a borderline first round player. The Seahawks essentially said as much, because he would have out-tested Colson Loveland and Tyler Warren in terms of the athletic measurables. So yeah, I think there's a lot of reasons to be excited about the offense 2026 and beyond. I do think this is going to be a pretty diagnostic year for them in 2025, but the defense should have them in a position. And Sam Darnold, as hard as I've been on the transition from Geno to Sam, he is a competent NFL quarterback, and showed last year that he can not only be good when things are good, but he can be great when things are great. Mm-hmm. I don't know that he can be great when things aren't great, but
who can? There's very few guys.
There's very few. Right. There's very few. And so, I think the fact that Seattle, look, people know by now, I am not a homer with this team. My goal is to have an accurate view. I think one of the safest bets in the NFL this year is for the Seahawks to go over their 7.5 win total in Vegas. Mm-hmm. Because I think, 7.5, you give me like 8.5, I'm thinking about it. 9.5. Okay. Now that's 50-50 proposition. You give me 7.5. I mean, I'll bet an irresponsible amount of money on that. I have bet an irresponsible amount of money on that. All right, last question for you. We're just going to dovetail here real quick, and this can be quick, but we're going to bring your two big interests together here. Fantasy football impact players for the Seahawks. Are there any? Who do you like at their draft cost right now, and who are you staying away from?
I mean, I mentioned Kenneth Walker earlier. I really like him. I think he's a value right now.
He seems like a good fit for the system.
Yeah, this is something that Ryan Heath from Fantasy Points did a big study on this, and if you see Kenneth Walker's his like efficiency on outside zone runs, it was like a 12 or 15% boost or whatever. And so, he is, I think, at home in that. He's the type of guy who, when you get him out in space, he's so creative and so elusive, such a good tackle breaker that he's gonna make something happen. So I trust him, and dude, and like just from someone who I scout the draft every year. I do the Ringers NFL draft guide every year, and kind of like every once in a while go back and kind of recalibrate based on some players from previous years. And it's like, dude, go back and watch Kenneth Walker's college tape. Dude, he is so much better than everybody on the field. It's ridiculous, and it gives you like a good piece of context for like judging running backs coming into the NFL now. So like, I kind of always try and do that a little bit. Like, you go back and watch some of these great running backs in their college days and like how much better they were. Like Ashton Genty is kind of like that guy this year. But I think my point is, I think we've kind of, because of the injuries over the last few years, it's been really frustrating with Kenneth Walker. It's been really frustrating with the run game, the offensive line.
And the fact that Charbonnet's come in and basically like duplicated the production from a fantasy standpoint.
I think we've lost. Yeah, that's exactly right. We've kind of lost the plot on Kenneth Walker, that I think he is one of the best pure runners in the game. And so I'm really hoping that he can kind of shine and stay healthy. Obviously, right now he's dealing with something which is annoying and concerning. But, I think if he can stay healthy in the scheme, he could put up big ass numbers and score a lot of touchdowns. He showed last year he's good in the passing game. Caught a lot of passes in the passing game. But
he was on pace for like a 70 catch season.
Yeah. So he is to me, a complete back. He just needs to stay healthy, of course. So he'd be the guy that I probably have like the most confidence in. Jacson Smith-Njigba, really good player, really good route runner. He's going to be, I think, reliable. I don't know how much they're going to pass. Like, I don't know if the passing volume is going to be able to get him to where he was last year in terms of like as a fantasy asset. I still really like the player
because he really established himself as kind of a low end wide receiver one, and by that I mean a fantasy wide receiver one, like top 12, not top 32.
Right. And I've always had a ton of faith in him. I just think he's a really good player, really natural player. Just Keenan Allen with juice, right? In like the most, to be like the most praise, like to in the most praiseworthy way. He's just a football player. You know what I mean? Like, he's just really good at football. He knows how to get open. He's really good at the catch point. Sneaky, in terms of like push-offs at the last second to kind of like get himself open, all that stuff. But I just do worry that this offense is going to be so run focused that he might be kind of being drafted sort of near his peak rather than a value. That being said, I still take him in drafts if he falls a little bit. That's about it, really.
I think so. I think when you get really into the trenches of fantasy football analysis and you're looking for edges and you're looking for predictive stats, you find yourself gravitating, at least I do, and I think a lot of people in that space find themselves gravitating towards these metrics, which are focused on efficiency, right? Yards per route run, etc. The end of the day, if you're playing fantasy football, you are playing a volume game.
Right.
And you can be the most efficient wide receiver on the planet. If you're getting 90 targets, you're just going to get outperformed by a less efficient player getting 140. And that's where it is for me from like a dynasty standpoint. Super high on Jacson Smith-Njigba because he seems like the kind of guy that the way that he wins ages.
Yeah.
And he's like
he moves
95% of Amon-Ra St. Brown in terms of how he wins and the type of player that he is. That's going to last a long time. I don't know that this team throws more than 500 passes this year. And it's going to be tough to have him keep up with other receivers going in the same range whose teams are going to throw it 580, 620 times.
Right. Yeah, it'll be interesting to see kind of how it all shakes out, whether they can run as much as they want to. But right now, in an ideal world, they're going to be playing slow probably and running a lot. So that just like caps the overall fantasy upside. And we obviously don't really know what Cooper Kupp has left. I think there's a world in which Cooper Kupp could have sort of a resurgence this year in this offense and be a medium volume type of player, or he could just be absolutely fucking dust and maybe he just sucks. And like, that is actually really good for Jacson Smith-Njigba in fantasy. And that is really kind of what puts Smith-Njigba over the edge. But I think with Kupp there, he's still probably going to be, eating into the overall passing game upside.
I think if you're drafting Cooper Kupp at this point, you're drafting the name.
Oh, 100%. He was obviously a shadow of himself last year. He's had injuries every year for the last couple of years. But we'll see. I mean, obviously they gave him a lot of money, so they have a certain amount of faith in him to play a certain role. I'll be very interested to see how he pans out this year.
Yeah, and again, I've been hard on the transition from DK Metcalf to Cooper Kupp. Obviously, they're saving a lot of money by doing this. One thing that DK Metcalf was very good at, very willing to do, that I think Cooper Kupp is also very good at and very willing to do, that is huge in the Kubiak system, is block. You don't get fantasy points for it, but he's going to earn his snaps by going out there, initiating contact, holding his blocks through the play.
Right.
I don't think there's a ton of deep sleepers on this team, but I gotta think Zach Charbonnet is the number one handcuff in fantasy football, besides maybe Jordan Mason, but I think Charbonnet is more dynamic. And then I think it might be worth a last pick of the draft or your last dollar in the auction to throw on Elijah Arroyo, just because it's so hard to find a tight end with real upside.
Yeah, I was gonna mention him as well. It sounds like he's been outstanding at training camp. The fact that they were talking about him as sort of like a replacement for DK Metcalf at X receiver in the draft obviously tells you how high
that's how he won in college.
Yeah. And he's a big, strong, fast route runner who he can run after the catch. This is the type of thing you're looking for at the tight end position, is like a really good athlete who can run after the catch and create big plays and hopefully score some touchdowns. I think he's a great sleeper last pick of your draft type guy. I wouldn't rely on him early on. But yeah, I mean the Seahawks passing game is sort of so in flux right now that we don't really know exactly how the volume is going to kind of be spread around. But yeah, he's a great one. He'll be like a 2026 guy, I think, in fantasy.
Yeah, and a great buy low in Dynasty at the end of the second round of your rookie drafts, top of the third round. I think we talked about this with Ben last week, but I think there are reasons to be optimistic about the 2025 Seahawks, but I think there's reasons to be really bricked up about the Seahawks 2026 and beyond, because the athleticism of the young players on this team is through the roof. Listen, Danny, I know you've got your show to get ready for here in a little bit. Your slate is full during fantasy draft season and tracking everything that's happening in training camps across the league. So it really does mean a lot that you joined us today, man. Thank you for coming on.
Absolutely. I'm on the clock in one of our leagues actually right now in a rookie draft, so you're gonna have to figure out who I'm gonna take here.
I know, and you're on the clock with a pick. I traded you for fucking Kyle Pitts last year, so enjoy that.
Hey man, Kyle Pitts, he has a chance here to actually do some stuff. Yeah.
This is his year.
He's only 24 years old, so maybe this is his year.
Yeah, did you hear he had 1,000 yards as a rookie?
Yeah, he did.
Yeah, good trade by me. All right, man, before you go, tell anyone who may not know already, there's 8 people watching the show that don't know where to get more of your stuff, but for those 8 people, where can they find more of you?
Check me out at theringer.com. Obviously, I'm on the Ringer Fantasy Football Show, and we have a new YouTube that we're trying to really push out here. If you like watching YouTube podcasts on video, check out our YouTube channel, Ringer Fantasy Football Show. So yeah, check that out.
Once again, a big thank you to my friend Danny Kelly for coming on and just waxing with me about the Seahawks, about fantasy. I freaking love the guy, and super grateful to him for coming on. As always, you can find Mike and I on social media. I am on Twitter and Blue Sky at Jacson Bevins. That's Jacson. Remember that no K is okay when spelling my name. Mike is on both at Mike Barwin, and the show itself is at Cigar Thoughts on Twitter and at CigarThoughtsNFL.com on Blue Sky. You can catch full video episodes on our YouTube channel at Cigar Thoughts. Find the rest of our socials at CigarThoughtsNFL.com. As mentioned previously, this episode is brought to you by Balvenie Premium Single Malt Scotch Whiskey. Y'all know I'm a huge fan of their lineup, and we are thrilled to have them on board as a sponsor of the show. And one of the great things about a great scotch is how well it plays with a good cigar. So once again, we do have our own special release of cigars that you can purchase at a terrific price as a listener to the show. This season, we've actually seen a big ramp up in orders, which is awesome. You guys are liking it. Not only are we getting people ordering for the first time, we're starting to see a lot of reorders too. So we super appreciate that. To that point, these releases have allowed us to keep the price at $149 for a bundle of 10. The thought was maybe we need to bump them up to make this thing work and kind of keep the show on the tracks. But no, y'all are buying enough of them that we can keep that price right where it's at. So it's just $149 for a bundle of 10. As you know, we partner with one of the most prestigious cigar manufacturers in the world to release these official Cigar Thoughts cigars, which you can order directly from cigarthoughtsnfl.com, or you can follow the link on the show page to get these easy to smoke stogies rolled with 13-year age premium tobacco leaf from the Dominican, or you can hit us up on Twitter or Instagram. We'll send you the details directly. The cigars come with a Bovita humidification pack and a Mylar storage bag to make sure they stay fresh whether you have a humidor or not, for those of you who have asked. Look, if you've got a humidor, great. And it is the best way to store your cigars. The aesthetic of them is awesome. But really, if you're keeping them in the Mylar bag, if you've got the Bovita pack in there, just keep them room temperature in a dark spot. That can be a closet, that can be a drawer, a cupboard, whatever. Promise you they'll stay fresh for as long as you need them. Finally, you can listen to this show at fieldgoals.com and everywhere you get your podcasts. And if you're listening on Spotify or Apple Podcasts and you like the show, drop us a 5-star rating, leave a quick review. Thank you to all of y'all listening for your continued support of this show. We know that you've only got so much time for podcasts in your life, and it's an honor to be a part of that for y'all. Please know that by sharing the show on social media and with your friends, you give us the juice to keep making this happen. We'll be back soon, but in the meantime, onwards and upwards, my friends.